This morning I just want to recognize the Samson Boat Company and Leo Samson. Many of the things that we encounter in building these models, we're following a trend of real boat building techniques. I stumbled across Leo's videos a few years ago and I followed it extensively. Many of the techniques that you see Greg and David explaining in the book, Leo will actually show you in rebuilding the tally ho. So I'm going to reference a few of them as we go forward, which will help explain a little bit in more detail what it is we're trying to do. I found it extremely useful and really suggest that you click in if you're not already a fan and follow Leo's build. Today we're going to start the external planking, so there's lots of preparations that we need to do first before we can actually start the work. The first part of the planking we're going to do is the wheel, and to do that I wanted the darkest wood I had, and I had collected some green heart. Green heart normally isn't as dark as this, but like with all woods, if you have a wide enough selection, you will see that there's a great color variance in every single wood. And I was fortunate enough, a friend of mine, Richard Hadid, was doing a deck and literally had thousands of board feet of green heart around. And there was some real dark, deep dark brown. And so I selected these pieces and I have gone and stripped them out. So you're not going to see me go in the outside shop and make the pieces. Since we are discussing wood, I thought I'd show you some of the hardwoods that I've collected, the dark hardwoods that I've collected over the years. This here is some ebony. And you can see how nice and dark it is. I was going to use it on the model, but I'm not sure there's enough, and so I'm going to leave it alone. But it's a beautiful dark wood. This is the green heart that we're using, and this is an aged piece. So again, let's put some. You can see it's not as black as that, but it's fairly dark. And like purple heart, which starts off as a beautiful piece of purple wood, over time purple heart also gets dark like this. One of the more interesting woods, which is harder than this, it's actually the hardest wood I have, is Wamara. Comes from Guyana. And I was thinking of using the Wamara, but the green heart was darker, much darker. And then, believe it or not, we talked about how in pieces of wood you get different colors. This is also Wamara, and you can see some of it retains this color, but there's also parts of it that are not quite white, but creamy, like a boxwood. Again, a lovely wood, very, very hard, very, very dense. This wood does not float. The first challenge I had is I realized that the clamps that I had used to plank the inside of the boat would not work on the outside of the boat. So I've developed these simple clamps, which are a hook on one side with a nut, and the old clamps that I used before. And what that allows me to do is to put the hook inside, put the second bolt on the top, and simply screw it in place. And I can adjust it so that the pressure is flat against the, in this case, the wheel plank, and pulls it up against the frames. So I've made up 6 of these. Now I have to look at the hull and clean up the stern area, which we had left out, and re-establish the rabbet, which is 3 inches all the way around. The other challenge we have is bending the planks to fit on the side. And to do this, I've made up this little wooden jig, I took a template of the inside of the model and cut this plywood template, which is going to allow me to clamp the boards onto the mold and heat bend them in place. The most fascinating part of this exercise is, for the first time, because I was using green hard, as I heated the wood, I could actually feel the lignum letting go. Because I weighted the end of the piece, as I apply the heat, you actually see it bending, which is really fascinating. And as we take these off, look at how the bend is locked in and no water. I didn't soak this at all. So very slight spring back. And again, we're going to heat this and bring it back down, and you're going to see this eventually totally locked into that shape. We left that for about a day and then came back, took some of the clamps off because I found I was getting some pressure points, heated it for the second time, followed the same process, and of course, as you can see from the video coming up, it's locked the total shape in place, almost too much, but perfectly to be put on the model. Of course, the key thing to remember is we're looking at so many videos of people steaming and wetting the pieces. Even I have done it, but a blow dryer will do all of this with no problem at all. The next thing we need to do is to open up the rabbet, and to do that we take the model off its stand, and the first thing we do is to sharpen all the chisels to clean up this little slot. This Veritas chisel is slightly less than 3 inches, so it's actually the perfect chisel to do it. And this is again the new micro Veritas system for sharpening the chisel. So we've got some honing fluid on. And this is the larger Veritas sharpening system, which works with the bigger chisels, and really is again a fantastic system, well worth the investment. When I was in New York last time, I picked up these stainless steel rasps, and they really are fantastic. And this one in particular is just short of the 3 inches, so it's ideal for opening up and giving me a nice clean line on the rabbet. With the rasp, and just slightly clean up the track. If necessary, use the chisel to deepen it, and then do a trial fit of a strake. And then we take the chisel, go up to the bow and the stern, and flatten these so we get a nice clean line for the plank to join against the keel and the stem and stern. You might want to sand this afterwards with some sandpaper, just to get a real clean line. This is also our last chance at cleaning up the hull. So again, simple, straightforward sandpaper on a block, going through and sanding and making sure that everything is nice and clean, particularly in the back and of course in the bow. How you determine that you've got a nice flat or clean hull is you take a plank and you put it on the side and just keep going down to make sure there are no bumps. I am finding a few spaces where, in this case here, this is a little bit low. In a perfect world, I suppose I could laminate a piece on and then sand it down. I'm not going to do that. You're not going to see it. Another technique is to take a pencil and mark all the frames, and then when you sand it down, the pencil line should disappear. If it hasn't, you still have more to go. I had forgotten that I had rough sanded the hull, and I really hadn't brought the finish down to take the planks. And so it's quite a bit of work to do. And I think this is really a very important part of the planking is the preparation of the service. The Samson Boat Company had showed me how they did this on a rail boat, and I'm using the same techniques there explained by Leo, where you take a blank piece of wood and run it along and really take all the high spots down. I'm using 60 grit paper, so it's fairly aggressive and just being very careful. I remember when I had started doing this, I still had some movement in the frames, and that's when I decided, let me do the interior to give the model some structure. And of course, really it doesn't move. It's a solid piece of wood at this stage, so it's much easier actually to fare the hull now. Wow, I have to say this this is now going into 3-4 hours. Really going in great detail, taking off little bits at a time. I didn't realize I had left so much work to be done. But this you can't go ahead and plank until the framing is just perfectly level and fared. So we just struggle with it until it's done. I'll put it down, maybe I'll take a day or two to get it right, but without a perfect surface, it just won't be done properly. Keeping my promise for full transparency, I had to add 2 filler strips, which I epoxied onto the port stern. You'll never see them. I didn't need to tell you about them. But there they are, and I assure you that when I finish with it, you won't even know I've done it. Well, that's enough for 2021. I actually hadn't planned to do this video, but I had some time on my hands, waiting on the 21st when I leave for New York. And after 2 days of doing nothing, I was back on the model, starting to work on it. So let me take this opportunity to wish everyone a wonderful and Merry Christmas. And I hope you keep far and safe from COVID. And we'll see you in the new year. Keep modeling.